You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Legend of Korra AFTERBUZZ panel.
I'm not sure
where
what that
we don't.
musical cue was.
I'm not sure either, but it's dramatic.
It is.
We have the dramatic Korra music this time around. We're not coming in on earth, fire, air, and water.
Obviously,
so I
that
guess
doesn't matter anymore.
So I guess this week, representing melancholy is Miss Liz Rishmawy.
Hey.
And next to her, representing the element of despair, is Tauri Miller.
Hello.
I thought you were going for the 4 humors.
I actually don't know what the 4 humors are, so I'm kind of making this up as I go along.
Melancholic, choleric,
your
sanguine,
arm.
and I'm missing the 4th one.
God, that would have been a much better intro for this.
Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo.
But then, sitting next to me, obviously correcting my mistakes, is Miss Katie Cullen.
I can't remember the 4th humor, and it's going to drive me crazy.
I think it's
Hi,
Black
guys.
Bile.
Yeah,
And,
that's
or
melancholic.
phlegm. Oh, it is? All right, well, whatever. And
And phlegm is choleric, and sanguine is blood.
I'm John Quick, obviously representing confusion.
Yeah, I have an English degree. I learned these things.
And in the booth is grand old Mr. Steven.
Not quite.
Not
but
Not
Steven.
quite, not quite.
No, he
Steven's
left.
on.
Traded.
Well, so we will.
Hey. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And now to leave
Studio
this,
C.
and now to leave this bit behind, we're coming into the episode.
Yeah, let's move on.
Episode 7 and 8, the original Airbenders, and the Terror Within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Now that
lot
sounds
of-
like a horror movie.
two very kind of different episodes. We have like original Airbenders is a much more like lighter, almost a return to, I would say, the Last Airbender kind of very like fun adventure.
Yeah.
And then Terror Within, this kind of, you know, locked door mystery and all kinds of political
Betrayal
machinations.
and- Yeah.
Just running underneath. But first things first, we're gonna open with Tenzin telling an extremely boring story about. Yeah, I don't even remember what the.
This guy, one of the monks, like
One of the monks that
fasting
never
for
ate.
100 days
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
something like that.
Fasting for
Hangs you.
forever.
Yeah, I love how like everybody's bored except for the aptly named Otaku.
Yes. That's
Who
amazing.
studied it already. You think he went through this story day by day, and on day 1, and on day 2, it's like reading the begats in the Bible. Begat. And by the time you hit the end, you're like, okay, that was the lineage of Jesus Christ. I never want to hear it again. It's like this, like that was the 100-day fast. Day by day.
And it was so funny too because
Okay.
he kept on like raising his favorite. Anybody else?
Anybody that isn't otaku who already studied this.
Yes.
And his air acolyte training, which I guess like all right, one of the air acolytes just achieved the dream.
Yeah.
I mean, we think
Yeah.
about it, good for him. It doesn't look like any of the other ones did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sucks for them.
Yeah. But you know, they're all training and everything, and then I like, again, you said it cuts to the more nicer parts of the episode where we kind of get a little more of a Jinora and Kai's relationship building in this episode, which was really fun.
That's also great stuff. And we also have air bison rustlers.
Yes, yes. And then, yeah, so, you know, and again, we're going into the whole thing where there's separate stories of how Aang found the bison again. But, you know, we see like this school of bison and they're all wild and they're like, when are we going to get one? And then Tenzin has to ruin the fun, of course, when they start having hope about something cool is going to come out of this training. And they're like, not for many years until you know, go through the training and then you can get your air bison.
And these are wild bison, and they probably aren't too terribly fond of humans. It's like going to train a wild horse.
Yes.
Right.
That's not going to be easy, and it may never work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we saw like just early in the episode with Boomy, like of course putting Boomju into his like little robe and making fun of Tenzin. Like we see this like family friction, but we already saw this kind of coming up in the very first episode when Tenzin discovers that there are more airbenders now in the world, and he's like, we can rebuild the Air Nation, but he's very, very naive in thinking about how that's going. He just thinks that they'll just be the air nomads that
Yes.
his father
Right.
told him.
Yes.
And we're already seeing from the start that they're very clearly not going to like be that.
And he doesn't take into consideration the fact that even him and his family, his kids, they all were born knowing that they were going to be nomads.
Yes.
And these are people that, you know, range in age from, you know, Kai and Janora's age all the way up to like, you know, Boomy's age. He's probably at least in his like late 40s, early 50s, you know, and it's not like you can just snap and change your entire life's perspective or the way you live it. So
Right.
And-
it's always a struggle.
And Tenzin therefore has no experience with people who are coming into this later, and
Yes.
therefore no idea how to teach them.
Yeah.
And I remembered the fourth humor. It's phlegmatic.
Ah,
I win.
well,
Nothing.
Good callback.
this is all that Tenzin knows. Like, I don't think he could even fathom another way of going about teaching these people because it's how he was raised. It's,
Yes.
it's the only world that he's experienced. I mean, Boomy has been out in different
The real
kingdoms
world.
and doing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the military.
Right.
And
The military is not the real world.
Well, it's kind of he's seen other cultures like in like up front, whereas Tenzin has almost never really left Air Temple Island. But then there's the other thing that he's running into is that like we can see Otaku. Well, he loves all of this stuff already, but like all of the Air acolytes when they moved to Air Temple Island, they wanted to learn about the Air Nation and the Air Nomad culture. All of these people are people that he rescued from the Earth Queen, and they more or less joined up because they didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It
it's-
was that or the non-existent witness protection program.
Yeah. But I thought, yeah, and it's cutting ahead a little bit into the episode, but since we were talking about it just now, I think it's relevant to bring up now, is that Boomy never, even though he's Aang's son, he never truly felt like part of the Air Nation or any of that. So now it's like this connection and everything. Because like I said, I mean, even look at their sister. You know, she's a waterbender. She probably doesn't really conceive any of that kind of stuff anyway, because they probably live different lives, while Aang probably took Tenzin off onto like separate adventures and stuff to train him and everything, while the other two kids stayed behind.
No, they
Oh,
ta-
he did. They totally
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
So.
And there's the other thing, like Boomy, they always say like, yo, he's the oldest, but he acts like the youngest. I mean, there has to be.
They named him right.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be something that went on. Like when he was first born, you had to think that Aang was like desperately hoping and praying that he was going to be an Airbender, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure he didn't try to let it show, but he probably was very, very disappointed in
Oh,
Boomy
absolutely.
a little bit, just for that. That's a lot of stuff. To
Especially
unpack.
when
Wow.
two master benders, their first child doesn't have bending powers, and they weren't going to know how many other kids they would have. So,
So you named him after the greatest Earthbender possibly that ever was,
Well,
next to
he's
Toph.
Yeah.
I think he was
Oldest
one of his
child.
best friends.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So
And he's the oldest child and the only person in a family of benders with no bending ability.
yes.
Of course he went off the rails and acted like Bart Simpson.
But
Yeah.
not
He wants attention.
But not just any like bending parents, like master bending parents.
that
Yeah.
saved the
Avatar.
world.
Yeah.
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 The Avatar and Katara, who apparently discovered whole new ways of using the healing arts with water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and blood bending and all that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but we don't talk about that.
Anyway, so they're
Unless
moving.
it's plot relevant.
So Kai goes ahead and takes Janora off to like, let's go see the baby bison. This is boring. Like, let's go do this. And they do. And we find out about how, you know, obviously the bigger bison are not too happy when you're playing with their kids that can't fly yet. So they're being overly protective, and Janora saves him. And they have that nice little conversation there about, you know, you're basically a master. And Janora gets up into this thing about her tattoos. She says, "My dad won't let me have them. He thinks I'm still too young."
Well, theoretically, she should already have them.
Yeah.
Like the way that you get your airbending tattoos, for at least from what I understand, is that you master all of the forms, and then you have to create a new technique. And Aang created the air scooter. I think that. Probably Tenzin, that air wheel that he uses on occasion was his. And so with Janora, I mean, she just invented astral projection as far
Yeah,
as we can tell.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's kind of upset about that because, again, it's the whole thing about the father-daughter concept of not wanting, and she is the oldest of his kids, so it's harder to let go of that whole "you're not a child anymore," but still trying to give her, you know, she is a master. She is at that level. So, you know, basically, you know, that whole happened. But and then going back to you know, Tenzin's dilemma, where he actually goes to Boomy for advice.
After he talks with Korra on the radio, and Korra's
Yes.
advice is get him to help, but let him think that he came up with the idea.
Which is
which
smart
is
of her.
incredibly people smart, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something you didn't see.
Yeah.
This is growth for Korra.
Yeah, this is
because
great.
we didn't get a lot of people smarts from her at the beginning. It was just Korra smash,
She's very
and now
right.
she's getting a lot better at
Yeah.
knowing how to work people and knowing how to get them to work together.
Exactly.
But just
So-
leading up to that moment, I just love how Bolin was talking on the phone. He starts going off about Opal and how adorable she is.
But
And then
I don't know how I'm gonna live without her. She's gonna be over there, and then we're not. No.
I'm gonna shut up now. Just like really, like realizes
That moment of
Slinking away.
self-awareness.
There has to be a Bolin like comedy relief each episode. It's always like good. But
Well, you kind of need it after some things that happen in some of these episodes.
Oh yeah,
Right.
definitely. But anyway, so so she, he listens to her and goes to Boomy and says, how would you go about doing this? And
Boomy ends up giving, like, he apparently doesn't think his advice through. He's telling him to lead them like a military force, which...
break them down and rebuild them back up.
Right.
Which
Which
like-
is great when you're commanding a military force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to, like, train, I guess, like, train a new culture of people and, like, try and reintroduce a new way of life, that doesn't work. And it also is, like, completely counterintuitive to the philosophy of the style of Airbender.
Yeah.
And again, it's a teaching technique that Tenzin has no experience with. Boomy would be able to do it because Boomy went through it himself and knows the ins and outs and knows how hard you can push someone before you give them a water break.
Right.
Tenzin doesn't have a clue.
Yeah, but also the military is something like, as far as we know, yes, there are benders in the military, but they're probably not training them all to use... When it's a group setting where you have people that aren't benders and that are benders, you're probably training them in one particular way, not to push them to use their powers in that setting.
Yeah.
And this is something where it's so new to them, it's definitely not the right approach the way he starts to take
Yeah.
it. To where we see him waking people up and airbending into the horn. And even Boomy's like, it's way too early for this. Taking them on a 10-mile hike where they're all freezing cold.
But then they can practice meditation
Yeah,
because
which
Airbenders
which is
know how to
hysterical.
regulate their internal body temperature.
Exactly. And then the whole scene on the pole and learning how to balance, and we have that one guy and he's like, lemurs and ears on the pole, it's okay, pretend they're not there, just ignore them, be one with your... It's this whole great...
Honestly, I didn't think what he was doing was terribly unreasonable.
No,
but I think
but-
everything stacked one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
you need at least a little 10-minute break to actually have them catch their breath. I
Right.
mean...
Yeah. Which again speaks to his lack of experience with this teaching technique.
Okay,
Well, I had assumed, and I was wrong, but I had assumed because there's a leadership technique that where you're super hard at the beginning and then you let up as time goes on, and that
Yes.
way it endears them to you, and you can allow yourself to be lighter because they already know the structure. And I assume that that's what he was doing, that or giving them something to like he was lightning rodding, giving them something to gather up.
I think he didn't actually know what he was doing. He was
yeah.
just like, ooh, military. Like,
Yeah.
because he's
Yell, yell,
This is my
yell.
understanding of the military. Lots of yelling.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he's only taught his children and Korra.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yes.
those are... And his children, like, yeah, they're going to listen to him anyway
Because he's dad.
Yeah, and Korra was going to listen to him because, like, Korra grew up knowing Tenzin, so she will always look to him as an authority figure
Yeah.
in that same kind of respect.
I mean,
But-
it took her a
Right.
while to get there because it was a hard element for her. But yeah, I mean, but this is something that's new for everybody. It's new for the people who are new at airbending, and it's new for him.
Yeah.
So, I love the next scene with the shaved heads about having to...
the show is great with its humor. Like,
Oh yeah, like the whole thing about shaving your head to make sure that way you can feel the air on your skin, and then says, "Who's next?" And then no one does. He's like, "Well, it's optional." And then the guy's just, "But wait,
Get the option.
he didn't get the option." So and then
And again, that to me says that Tenzin is really, really caught up in what he's doing and not
Exactly.
actually thinking about any ramifications.
which
Yeah.
leads to Boomy just, like, flat out quitting.
on
like,
the obstacle course, yeah. And it's so funny how we see Kai fly by and everybody else just, you see the levels that they're at as airbenders at this point, and in that scene, I think.
I think that there's kind of Kai has a deeper understanding. Kai almost reminds me of Aang if Aang grew up as a street urchin as opposed to in a temple. He has a
Yeah.
lot of those same mannerisms.
Yeah.
And that, again, that philosophy of freedom. Air is supposed to be the element of freedom. Nobody seems to understand that better than Kai.
Yeah.
Really.
But I also think it's because, being this kid on the streets and learning to fend for yourself and everything like that too, he's going to be quicker and faster. He probably has some moves and agility skills that the other guys didn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, these could have been people like us, we're just sitting doing our lives, and he's running around, and he's got stealth mode because he's stealing from people and running away constantly from authorities. So that's always something that he has as well. But, you know, yeah, so Boomy basically just screams at him and says, I'm fed up with you. And it was a lot of pressure on him, too, because it's like, if you don't do this, everybody's going to have to do it again. And it was just too much at that point.
And he flips out. He's like, I never wanted to be an airbender, which I think is just like him projecting like all of those insecurities from childhood. And it's like, I don't want to be a part of this. I quit. And he walks away.
Yeah. And it gets to the whole scene with Jinora, and basically, you know, well, Kai made a good point that I should get my tattoos, Dad, because, you know, I am a master. And they have that whole scene where he flips out at the, you know, shudder to think, and she says, you know, I know all the teachings, I know the history, I know the culture, I know the moves, and I'm actually more in touch with the spirit world than you'll ever be. And she flips out and kind of like runs off.
It's a great little animation moment of Kai just like sidling.
Yeah. Do not include me in this. It's enough that, you know, he's going to get on me for trying to like have some sort of thing with you more than friendship. So,
and it's bad enough that she does it in front of the people that he's trying to set himself up as
to be
an authority figure.
Which, yeah, exactly. So it's that whole scene, and then we have, and then of course go from serious scene again to humor, where we have basically Iki and Milo put in charge as Tenzin kind of storms off to do his thing, and we just have Milo goes, look to your left, now look to your right, one of you won't make it out alive.
One of those people will not make it out alive.
Oh God, I love it.
Can we get more of that kid in the show?
He is hysterical. I mean, just when he was screaming about people being maggots or something a couple episodes back, I love this kid, and I cannot wait to I just want more of him in the show. I know he's kind of like a back character, but so important.
I don't think he's a very good teacher.
No,
really don't think he's. Yeah, but he is a small child with a lot of power he doesn't know how to handle. Tenzin is an adult with a lot of power he doesn't know how to handle.
He handles it pretty well.
He organized those lemurs that one time.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, and then we skip ahead to Jinora and Kai, and going back to the whole bisons and everything, where that's when they stumble upon these poachers, or actually rather the poachers stumble across them because they're caught in a net as they are looking and going, where did the baby bison go? Where did they all go?
They're in this truck over here, and yeah, it turns out that they are poachers for the Earth Queen, who likes eating exotic animals, and they drop, I heard she even ate her dad's bear.
Which is not a surprise.
Yeah, no. It's like
Bosco.
Bosco was Bosley.
Gosh, that's messed up.
Yeah, and what are you going to say?
So she wants baby bison steaks.
Yeah, it's just
baby back ribs.
And I don't necessarily think that they work for her so much as just they're the scum of the earth, and they're just going to go anywhere where they can make money.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was 100 years ago, they'd probably be
paycheck.
selling stuff to the Fire Nation, so...
Yeah,
and that's a pretty big paycheck from the queen herself.
Yeah, and and now they're like, oh, great. Well, we heard that there were some airbenders around here. I bet the queen will pay a pretty penny for giving, you know, the airbenders back to her for her army, or whatever it was that he said.
Yeah.
So there's that whole scene.
Selling people.
And, you know, and then so we have that moment of, okay, well, this is the plot. This is the main point of the episode. What's going to happen? And then we switch back to where Tenzin's having difficulty with this whole thing. And what is his wife's name again?
Pema.
And
Pema is a glorious human being, and she has the patience of a saint.
Yeah, and you know, and it's just, you know, she breaks it down for him. You know, like, I was so excited to be an air acolyte, but but that first time when you're in it and the bed's so hard, and I love that little scene, like, it's
actually better for your back.
Not the point, dear. Not the point.
And then she just kind of very reasonable. She's a very down to earth character, and just like she's kind of his wisdom when he's angsty and, you know, going through all that. Like, I feel like
she's his foil.
His hot headedness is very much, I think, he gets from Katara. You know, his mother, when in those times where we saw her back in her younger days, when she was just kind of flipping out and very stubborn. So she just basically tells him to be patient, and he goes to apologize to Boomy, which, you know, he's still kind of not ready to accept his apology. He's kind of not having it.
Which, thanks, Boomy. You're very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, is anyone really surprised that he's going to turn around and go, it's like, oh, I forgive you, Tenzin?
Oh, yeah.
No.
I mean, it made sense. Now we know that there's something's going to happen. Someone's got to save Jinora and Kai, which by the way, forgot to mention, Kai mentions, can't you astro project or send one of the spirits to send for help, which she does, and you have this cute little thing.
But she can't project because there's not enough space and it's too noisy.
And it's too noisy, she can't.
That's the downside of that technique, is that she actually has to have some peace and quiet and space to meditate.
Yes.
And when you're in a cage that's 3 feet by 4 feet
with
by
a
2
little
feet,
bison.
with a bison, not a good way.
Yeah,
not a good time.
But it's so funny though, that scene where this little spirit goes to tell
Boom
I want one.
Boom-Jew.
It's like a little field mouse sparrow,
You
and
know,
I want one.
And then basically when he's like, guys, they're in trouble, and they're like, you can understand and communicate with the spirits.
get the gist.
I get the gist of it.
It's kind of like Luke talking with R2-D2. It's just like he's just kind of like, I get exactly what you're saying, and then but then like when Boom-Jew's talking with him, I was like, what's that, Lassie? Timmy fell down a well.
Or
Exactly.
a little more contemporary, I am Groot.
Yes. So I didn't see that movie yet.
You need to see that movie.
Here are all the spoilers.
But no spoilers in the comments, guys. Come on, seriously, come on.
So so then Boomy basically, I guess because he's still really angry at Tenzin, is like, because all these guys are saying, wait, shouldn't we get Tenzin?
Well, Tenzin's he flew off on a bison looking for Jinora and Kai, so like they don't know where he is or even how to get him, because I don't even think most of them fully realize how to like even fly with their gliders.
Yeah, well, I don't think
Tenzin knew to kind of go looking in the area of the bison.
Because they made that comment, she went off with her boyfriend. But so basically Boomy's like, you know what, forget that guy. We're gonna do this. We're gonna save them. We're airbenders. We gotta look out for one another. We're gonna find them.
But you quit.
Remember our struggles on the obstacle course.
Yeah, that's not the point.
You quit.
That's not the
aside from
point.
the point.
Shut up.
Exactly.
Help me save my niece.
Never mind that you have an actual very good point there. We're not going to address it because it ruins my speech.
Yeah.
Right.
So then basically you flash forward, and of course Kai, being the awesome street little urchin that he is,
Picks the lock with
He
a couple
picks
of
the lock with
sticks.
2 sticks,
Did
which
anybody
doesn't
get-
seem possible.
Yeah, but did anybody just... No, but you know what? They make up for it. Because, like, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, that's really impossible. But then he falls. He goes out, and then a little bison's like... And he just, like, kind of falls. He's not that squeaky, though. But, like, that moment of adorableness made me forget about being nitpicky about him picking this lock with, like, 2 sticks.
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that, because you need one to kind of hold them down and another to...
This is also
lock
with
picking.
flying
You
animals and
probably
people who
could
can
do
bend
2
elements.
sticks.
Yeah,
So-
Probably,
let's skip past that.
Yeah. And so at this exact crucial moment where he basically attacks one of these guys and gets everybody, all of them, that's when they're already there looking at this, and all the, Boomy and all the recruits, and they just go, charge! And they just run into this really great battle. And I think it's so fun to watch these. These guys are really bad guys, and they've probably been earthbenders since birth and are very skilled at bending. And you have these newbies with new powers just going in full force.
Right.
But they're working together for the
Exactly.
most part, and they're using what they've learned.
And of course,
you see some of the stuff from the obstacle course.
And
You see
speaking-
the guy with the shaved
That's what
head.
I was just about to
That was
say.
the
He
best
shoots
part.
it, he
net at
feels
him,
it,
and you
he-
kind of see
Yeah.
you see the air currents go over, and he realizes it, dodges the net, and takes out the guy
That was a
who
great
shot
part of
it.
animation right there. That whole little scene, and
Chekhov's airbending.
and then so the main guy goes off, and poor Janora's still in here, and that's when we see Tenzin come in with the bison trying to save her as Kai's chasing after her, because I think Kai's one of the few, along with Janora, that knows how to use an air glider.
Yeah, no,
so
he
he's
is.
chasing him on the glider and actually manages to get in the cab of the truck
Yes.
and start brawling with this guy who's driving.
Yes.
Which, good job, everybody.
Oh, but even better, at the very end of all of this, one of the bison just shoots this massive gust of air, like stops the truck completely cold, and the guy goes flying out the windshield.
Yeah. This was a moment to wear your seatbelt.
Yeah.
No kidding. Like, take the extra 2 seconds and you won't be murdered by a bison and forced stop.
But I also love that whole moment where Kai is just so enraged and angry and keeps attacking this guy after he already said, I give up. And
Oh, he says I give up even before Kai attacks.
That's what I'm saying.
He's like, I give up, bam!
Yeah,
Oh.
and because he's just so angry, and Tenzin, after a couple of hits, he let him get like 3 or 4 hits in, says, hey, we never attack airbenders. We do not attack unarmed opponents. But
Defenses.
good technique.
Yeah. I mean, you really shouldn't do that, but you really did a good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And then we get the scene where the bisons are now kind of these wild bison that were just before said that they're not going to go near you. You know, Tenzin saying, well, they recognize us as their own. These are the original Airbenders, which anybody who's been watching the series since the beginning with Aang already knew. And, you know, and then we have that really...
But this is their moment of, like, they actually have, as opposed to people who can just move their arms and move air around, now they're airbenders, which is
exactly and they worked as a team in a community and a family, and this is where we have that really nice moment at the end that kind of closes off the episode on a nice note where Jinora, you know, it's a very realistic father-daughter moment where, you know, he promises to think about letting her get her tattoos. And then we have the little baby bison flying. He says, I guess everybody's growing up, and it's just, sentimentality episode.
Which then cut to, now meanwhile at the plot, Zahir and the rest of...
We're going to episode 8 now.
Yeah.
But this is the very end of episode 7. We cut to Zahir and his 3 other members of the crew. Zahir is meditating, and then all of a sudden he comes out of it and he goes, I know where the Avatar is.
Yeah.
He's in Zaofu.
That was last episode.
Yeah.
Oh, that was last episode?
That was last episode,
That was at the end of 6.
Even so.
I was like, did I cut before the credits?
Well, in episode 8 going into this was the episode that they showed at Comic-Con. So I'd only seen a couple episodes at this point, so I'm sitting there watching this out of context going,
what's going on?
Wow!
Yeah, and exactly like that too. You know, we have...
Well, there was a lot more screaming at Comic-Con,
Well, yes.
but
Yeah.
it's
Right.
Ballroom 20 at Comic-Con. There's going to be screaming no matter what you do.
But then, you know, so we have Bolin and Korra sparring with the twins. These
Wing
are
and Wei.
Wing and Thank you.
They have names!
Wing and Wei.
They don't have personalities
Wing
that are
Wei.
separate from each other, but
Wei
they
Wing.
have names.
And
they're important, kind of.
And we just, again, we have Bolin comedy relief where he just cannot grasp the concept of metal bending as hard as he may try.
Right.
Well, and there's been theories thrown around, and I rather like this, that he's having issues with metal bending because he's not a metal bender. He may be a magma bender because fire bending runs in the family.
That'd be good.
Maybe. That would be really
Interesting.
cool.
So that would explain
Where did
why
you
he
hear
was
that
having
before? Just like
internet.
on internet?
Internet.
On the interwebs.
Internet. Where did you get that? Internet.
Which I think...
Nickelodeon.
But
Yeah.
even Su Yin said, like, she theorizes that any earthbender can learn how to metal bend. It's just a matter of being able to grasp kind of the basic...
Recognizing, every single small fracture particle of metal is from the earth originally. It is just a new process of it. I don't think he'd be able to be a magma bender because that would require him to have power over fire, and he's not going to have...
Not
it wouldn't require
necessarily,
you to-
because
it's-
the earthbender is the magma bender, and he just superheats
right.
it by
Yeah,
going
on,
real
yeah.
fast.
You're right.
So it's like how the
For
water
some reason,
benders
I always
change.
thought he was a firebender with...
No, because the firebender is explosion eye lady.
Combustion lady.
As we find out this
Bazooka
episode,
head.
she knows how to curve the bullet.
I know!
That is awesome.
The one thing that the other guy couldn't get, that was his downfall. But, you know, so we have this
People
whole...
learn. People learn.
Yeah. So we have this whole thing with, you know, Bolin and, you know, they're sparring with it, you know, and Korra's obviously getting the hang of it because she's a natural and, you know.
And she's also the avatar.
Yes.
So
obviously.
Yeah.
She's
Little
used,
bit of a
she's
leg up.
more used to learning the concept of having to grasp onto how to bend a different element than somebody else who's just rock or just this.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then we go into the whole thing where we know that Opal's leaving soon, so we get more of Bolin and her, and they have this whole moment over Kale.
We'll always have Kale.
Yes.
Which was adorable and
Adorkable.
extra weird living in Los Angeles, seeing two people going, we'll always have Kale. Because I swear I could probably hear that walking down Santa Monica Boulevard.
Probably.
Yeah.
You're right.
You know. And then
I don't think I'd want to hear that anymore. We'll always have Kale. Honey, there's something wrong with you.
But of course they take this moment to just let Varric jump in. Just more of this character. I love Varric. Anything that he
He's
can do.
Water Tribe Tony Stark, and I adore him.
He just leans in. Can I give you some relationship advice?
No.
Fair enough.
And then they have this. He has this very useless airbending detector where
You have to airbend
you have to
into it
airbend
to
into
get
it.
it
It's
to
like
work.
that.
Congratulations.
You know, it's
You've reinvented
It's
the
technically
wheel.
accurate because if you can airbend into it, then you've been found.
I just imagine someone blowing into just. And then it's like, you're an airbender.
Well, maybe it's just like
Congratulations.
it has the needle. It goes from red to yellow to green. So maybe it's like, you know, you can blow into it, just goes a little bit, but you got to be able to bend into it. And once it goes to the green, then we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you could just physically see somebody bend, which is why it's so beautiful and the point of how. That's why I'm like, he's kind of like if Tony Stark was not good at being Tony Stark.
And then poor Mako stuck on the other side of the table next
Next
to
to
I can't hear
Aiwei.
anything.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. I can tell you're
You're
lying.
lying. No, he's saying it has nothing to do with you. I can tell you're lying.
Well, and again, with Aiwei, I saw this episode before I watched most of the rest of the series because Comic-Con.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been watching these episodes with Aiwei going, you.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Aiwei, as it turns out, is a traitor.
This was a great episode to see out of context.
Yeah.
And how he betrays them as we jump ahead even just to the next scene, we see the entire city of Zaofu asleep.
With
And
everything on
sealed
lockdown.
Yeah. And then suddenly we see Zahir, Minghua, Gazan, and Pei Li just like sneaking their way through.
Yeah, and then poor Pabu trying so desperately hard to grasp Bolin's attention, and he's just not getting it.
And
And then
making this ear-shattering noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I live with 2 cats, and trust me, like small animals like that make those noises in the middle of the night, and your response is immediately to wake
Shut
up,
up.
yell "shut up" or throw something at them.
Exactly.
Like, you're just like, no.
yeah,
Because
I live in
9
a
times out of
studio
10,
with
it's
2
not
cats. I can't lock them out of a room, so you know, I know. But at the same time, you know, Pabu's history, he's more intelligent than most cats, I would assume.
Yeah.
But we have this really cool scene where we see more of the airbending and Minghua. She cuts a hole in the glass, very, you know, James Bondy way.
Yeah.
With a little teeny point of
Yes.
ice.
And they're
This
very
is some extremely broken waterbending.
Yes. And
she's really terrifyingly good. They
Yes.
all are.
Yeah.
They're all
Even Zahir, who just learned.
They're a new brand of expertise in their airbending ways
And
from
it's
what we've
scary.
seen in the past with
In
any
their
others.
anything bending ways.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it's scary.
we already see, like, Pei Li is like the second combustion bender we've ever seen. Gazan is the first ever magma bender that we've ever seen. Minghua doesn't need her arms to do
to
any
be a
of it.
master of waterbending.
And Zahir picked up airbending
Yeah.
like that.
Well, he's always
Right.
been intelligent and he's very well. I mean, if you were to think if he was somebody to go into being an air acolyte, he would probably pass and you know, jump ahead a couple of grades because he's already been doing it for years where he's so
That's
fascinated with
probably
the history.
actually where he started.
Yeah.
As an air acolyte on
Yeah.
Airtickle
That's a
Island.
very interesting concept. I'm actually not caught up with the series, so we'll see. No spoilers,
Neither
please.
am I. No spoilers.
But yeah, so they're very smart, and they shoot this tranquilizer, which we find out a little later is something called a shirasu toxin.
Shirshu. It's
Shirshu, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Shirshu toxin is actually from, if you guys remember from the Last Airbender, there was the bounty hunter that Zuko and Iroh hired.
Yes.
And she rides around the giant like mole
her.
thing.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh,
She was
yes.
awesome.
Yeah, she was so cool.
She was great.
But yeah, so then basically, you know, finally Mako and Bolin, you know, they tranquilize Naga, and then they tranquilize Korra, and then they're running off, and then finally Mako and Bolin get the message from
Because
Pabu.
Pabu's screaming, come
You
on,
know.
Pabu, it's not playtime. Oh my God, they have
And again, taking a serious moment and making it gold. And then we just get into this battle basically, where now, you know, Bolin and Mako are fighting Zahir, and they're basically calling out someone help. You know, they have the avatar, and we get the guards coming with the spotlights, and that's when everything like stuff starts to go down this episode.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible use of teamwork on both sides because you have our wonderful 4 criminals who are covering each other's backs and fighting people off, and you have well-trained teams of guards.
Cars.
Wow,
I love cars.
Cards. Yes, card games. You have, the teams of guards. You have Lin and Su Yin, who can somehow work together extremely well, despite having had a 30-year-long feud. So
But
you
they were
have
both
Mako
taught
and
by the
Bolin.
same person.
That's true.
And the master, so.
Yeah.
But you have all sorts of people working really well together, and it's just the choreography is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the animation.
But above all, you see 4 people holding off an entire city of master metal benders, a firebender, and
And Bolin.
and Bolin, the
Which, again,
Earthbender.
he has to make that comment where they're basically surrounded. They think they have him, and then all of a sudden, that's when the magma starts rising, and they basically make a moat. And then Bolin has to be like, "Oh my God, he's a magma bender! That's so cool!" And really bad news for us.
But still cool. Again, I think Bolin could probably do that if he tried.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But so they basically are trying to figure out there's that moat is impenetrable. How are we going to get there? To which I think it was Sue who got the idea first by looking up about. You can go dropping down with the cords, but the whole problem is Pele, that we need
the precision shooter.
Yeah, the combustion bender that you need to distract her. So it's basically up to Bolin at this point because I guess they need like a rock or something, not just like a fireball, because she'd probably just bend that away.
Bolin has already shown that he can make very good precision shots with
yeah,
small
they were
rocks.
on
His
the
aim is fantastic.
Well, they were all on
and he showed it earlier this episode.
On the last season when they were on the team together for the sport. I mean,
for pro bending.
Yeah, pro bending.
But so he even showed it earlier this episode. He's not doing too well with metal bending, but he takes Wing out with a rock about the size of a quarter to the middle of the forehead.
Yes.
Right.
Which,
so
oddly
again,
enough,
Chekhov's guns all over the place.
Yeah.
Where it's right where you need to hit a combustion bender to
disorient them.
Yeah, short out their powers, which we saw with Combustion Man. And I think that's how they ended up taking out Combustion Man.
Yeah, they actually did. I think
they exploded on him.
But then we have them going up, and of course we have radio interference where they're not ready, and he says no go yet, and he's like okay go,
okay,
and he's like
go.
No. So it's this very tense moment where Sue and Lynn are already dropping down, and we have this really awesome scene of slow motion where Mako's yelling, "You got to take the shot now!" And we see Pele looking up and like basically are ready to just blast them right out of the sky, and
Bolin gets the shot, takes her right out.
We can always depend on Bolin when the moment comes to that very last need it to happen. So basically, Lynn and Soo-Yun get in there and basically. They managed to get Korra out, which is the whole scene was very on edge.
What I love is that Soo-Yun's metal dancing comes into this because a couple episodes ago we saw her doing the choreography, and part of it involved hanging from those cords from the ceiling and working with each other. And part of what she does, because Zahir comes after them on his glider once he realizes what's going on, Soo-Yun grabs Lynn's cord because she's carrying Korra and pulls her out of the way of a shot and counterbalances. And that's something you only do with a lot of training.
Yeah.
And that
was some Cirque du Soleil ninja stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which then after that, of course, when they finally have Korra safe, and they're trying to discuss, like, how do they even get into, like, Soo-Yun is demanding, how do they even get into my city? Like, this is closed up. There had to be, like, an inside man. So
Korra suggested it had to be a guard. So
this is after they just up and disappeared. It was pretty much smoke bomb, and there go the villains.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then so basically Ai then steps in and says, well, we have to question, and, well, really it was Sue.
I can interrogate them.
Yeah, of course, because he's a walking lie detector.
Yeah.
And they go through this whole process, and and he keeps detecting, and even at that one point where I was like so mad at Lynn for going back, it's like we already established that Sue is a good guy. Like, why do we have to question her? Even Korra got frustrated with her.
Oh, but even better than that, questioning Varric, and like, it's like,
Oh,
where were
Varric.
you? It's like, well, last night I was checking myself over for ticks. Lyme disease, you can never be too careful.
Yeah.
and just going over like
and
the
I
list.
did calisthenics, and I filmed the whole thing if you want to see it. No.
Yet again, anybody that's connected with this show, if you do a web series called Julie Do the Thing, where it's just Varric doing demonstrations of like all this, or it's just like that stuff, that needs to happen.
Please. That is we should kickstart that miniseries. Just like, please.
Yeah, I mean, and then we have that moment where, so basically, of course, Sue's like, you know what, I have nothing to hide. And I almost for a moment thought that maybe something he would have said that she was, but she wasn't. And then we get this kid guard. He's like
17.
17 or 18. I think
18.
I think he's
18.
18. He's 18.
Young.
Yes.
Born and raised in Zaofu, and then just like all of a sudden, Ai Wei is just like,
pushing him further.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
let them in? Did you corroborate? And then he just goes, he's lying. And Su Yin flips out.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, she's not going to question somebody that she considered family that's been her trusted advisor for all these years and helped build the city. Of course, she's just going to go with it.
And he's the
But
Right.
it turns out that everyone else is pretty suspicious because, okay,
And
we
they
found evidence planted
at his
in
house.
this guard's apartment. And Mako's the one that points out, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
These people have been in prison for over a decade. This
Yeah.
kid's lived here his entire life.
How would he have-
possibly get any connections?
Exactly.
And it's...
And you also take a look at the evidence is also kind of like circumstantial. He's a guard, and he has a book with like
All the guard
log
shifts
books.
and
Yeah,
everything.
but he could probably have that. He works there.
But
Right.
it's just
And
but
it's
it's too
Varric.
but it's too convenient that it would be just in his apartment, just right there. I mean,
Yeah.
you would
And
think
it's-
that if as young as he
Founded
is,
by Aiwei.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Varric who points out, well, if I was going to frame someone, I would plant the evidence in their apartment and then do this.
Well, like
like
Mako
you did to
before.
Mako?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly like that.
Exactly.
And it
He
worked
has-
spectacularly. I mean, not for you, but for me, it was great.
That was hysterical.
He has no shame, and it is beautiful.
And, you know, so of course they're suspicious. So they're going to go to Aiwei's place and they're going to snoop around a bit because why is this man who he has to be in on something or know something because he's the freaking lie detector.
He's
Well,
the
Mako
only
puts the
person who can keep a secret.
Yeah, that's what Mako points out. The only person who can keep a secret in the entire city is him.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and yay, detective work.
Pretty much.
Good for sleeping under your desk for all that time. But but they go and they're looking around and they find that hidden room. There's a staircase that leads somewhere behind a bookshelf, which already is. The whole thing was a giant red flag to be raised in the first place. But to see that is already questioning into something that's up. And then
Aiwei comes home, and they obviously cannot lie to him about why they're there.
Right.
Did any of you also found it interesting how clever Korra was when
Oh,
he would
yeah.
ask
We're
her a
looking for
question
answers.
and she would try her best to not answer in yes or no because then he would be able to detect immediately if she's lying.
Right.
And she kept on trying to reword her responses back to him to not make him suspicious that they were onto him.
Yeah.
But of course he figures out that they had found it because Mako, they didn't put the bookcase quite up
They
against
didn't they didn't put the little pottery thing back exactly and it was
Right.
slightly open.
Yeah.
which is a fun little Bolin moment. Mako's just like, you forgot where you put that, didn't you?
Exactly. And you know, and
Aiwei pretty much raises a metal wall and escapes.
yeah.
And when they try to go down the stairway
And he
after
says that
him,
thing, you have no idea what's in store for
Yeah.
you, Avatar.
Which is like one of those things of, so this obviously goes deeper than 4 renegades. If like, because this guy isn't like, obviously it doesn't seem like they paid Aiwei money. It seemed like he was part of a deeper plan. So
Yeah.
there's some, like whatever Zahir and his comrades are doing, it goes much deeper than just these 4 people. And like,
Oh yeah, I mean, as
Oh,
we
yeah.
come to find out later, you know, about who they are and everything. But you know, it's just I wonder, and I'm very curious as to when we will know more about how Aiwei got involved with them, because if he's been with Sue this entire time, you know, becoming like her family and building the city and everything, you know, we really, you know, we'll get into that more. But
I don't think Sue's out of the woods.
yeah, exactly.
Because she basically goes to Korra and says, look, I know I told Lynn that you guys were going to go back to Republic
Yeah,
City.
after Lynn scolds
but
her
here's
saying
a
you can't
jeep,
go af.
Go find them if you think you can. Go find Aiwei.
Exactly.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
theory running around just the net right now where people speculating that Su Yin is a part of
Oh, yeah.
that
Oh,
group.
yeah.
It's entirely possible that she is in on it because she has removed the avatar from one person who is very much dedicated to protecting her. She was interrogated by Aiwei, and Aiwei can lie,
This is
and
true.
no one will
that is
know.
very
Yeah.
true.
And it was also
And she would also know how to get in and out of the city.
yes.
and she also managed to stall them when they came to take Opal to the Northern Airbender Temple.
Yes,
It was like,
she
oh,
wanted
no,
to
she
keep the avatar
there.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
It doesn't make a lot of sense character-wise for Suyin to be in on this because she has this city, because she has this family. Why would she jeopardize it when she seems to have everything?
Exactly.
Whereas Ai Weiwei lives alone, very Spartan living. If he doesn't have an emotional connection to any of these people, he would gladly throw them under the bus.
Yes.
And evidently that's what's happened.
Yeah, so
it doesn't make sense for someone with a family that she loves to do the same thing.
Yeah, so we will find out only in time. But yeah, so basically Lynn says you can't go. Sue pretends like she agrees, and we find out she says, can Naga really track him down? And she sets everything up. She said, I bought you some time. And they basically ride off. And then that's when we get the closing credits.
Yep.
So a lot of things now heating up. We have this conspiracy that is now being unveiled that there's something more going on. Of course, like Opal is off to join the Northern Air Temple, but I guess just going forward, like hopefully we're gonna find out what their motivations are. And I know that if you're already watching ahead, you already know kind of what Zahir and his group's end goal is.
No spoilers in the comments, please.
Yes.
Some of us aren't. Some of us aren't.
Cryptic comments are fun, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always good. And speaking of comments, you guys, we forgot to mention, but check us out on iTunes. Give us a rating of 5 stars. This lets everybody know, our bosses know that you love the show. Leave us some comments there as well. We're always happy to reply to you guys. Just please no spoilers.
Yeah. You guys are usually pretty good at not spoiling anything. So please continue to do just that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. But then I guess coming up next week we have episodes 9 and 10. Long live the Earth Queen. And I'm trying to remember what episode 9 is.
That's not ominous.
Yeah, but not Long live the
We'll
Earth
talk
Queen
about
is an
that.
ominous one.
Yeah. So going on, where can the people find everybody?
Well, as you guys know, you can find me on Twitter at @NowQuick. You can also see me on the Attack on Titan panel.
I'm Katie Cullen. You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. I'm also on the Attack on Titan and Sword Art Online panels on Sunday and the Ruby panel every other Thursday.
Hey guys, I'm Liz Rishmawy. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lizzie Mawy. That's LIZZYMAWY. You can also find me on the Sword Art Online panel with Katie and Tauri, and you can also find me a little later tonight on the Musketeers panel.
And I'm Tauri Miller. You can catch me on Twitter at TauriJ. That's TauriJay. And I'm also on the Sword Art Online panel and the XF panel on Wednesdays. I know words.
Don't forget, like, comment, give us 5 stars. We'll see you guys next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
Believe it! The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.